Hi and welcome. This video is going to be about what I keep in my bag for landscape photography. Let's start with the camera. It's a Sony Alpha 7 R2. It has 14 bits of dynamic range. There aren't that many 14-bit cameras out there. So it can cope with scenes that have some very bright spots and some very dark spots. So it can cover a wide tonality. So it's a really good camera in that respect. It can cope really well with low light, so it's great for astrophotography. It's got a 42 megapixel sensor, and that's roughly gives you an image of about 7,000 pixels on the longest edge and about 3,000 something on the shortest edge. Can't remember exactly what it is. That means if you went to print at 300 ppi and you didn't do any cropping or resizing in Photoshop, etc., it would give you a print of about 26 inches on its longest edge. So it's a great camera for landscape photographers that need to go to print. What else can I say about it? Well, they moan, not me, that it doesn't focus very fast. I don't often use that many autofocus lenses. Most of my primes are manual focus, but this particular lens isn't, for instance. For landscape photography, does that matter? No, it doesn't to me. And also they moan about the continuous burst mode. Well, I don't often use continuous burst mode. They say it's too slow. So for landscape photography, this is a fantastic camera, and it really will help you along the way if you're just getting into landscape photography. Now, it is quite expensive. It's been superseded by the R3. So it makes the R2 become a bargain. So in about 6 months' time, it'll probably drop to under £2,000 at a guess. But it's dropping in price all the time because of the R3. The R3 offers a bit more dynamic range and it focuses a little bit faster. So for me, that's not a good enough reason to upgrade at the moment. There's not much else I can say about the camera because it's got a lot going on with it. So I don't want to get into the technical details. I'm just telling you, for landscape photography, it is absolutely fantastic. Lenses. Now, this is my Sony FE, F stands for full frame, E for E mount, 24 to 70 focal range, and it's got a widest aperture of f2.8. So it's a pretty wide open lens for a zoom. This is my utility lens if I were to go out by myself and I didn't want to get into tripods and I just want to carry my camera. This would be the lens I would take. So it can do pretty wide shots and some good portrait type shots, etc. The big selling point that Sony had, the bokeh, and the bokeh is very attractive on this. It's also pretty sharp for a zoom lens, not as sharp as some of my primes, but it is pretty good. So it's a good utility lens, but the big downside is it cost nearly £2,000, well £1,800, roughly $2,000 US dollars, so it is expensive. I wouldn't recommend buying this lens alone for landscape photography. I think you're better off buying a wide prime. So that's my personal opinion. This is a great utility lens. It's got that 24 to 70 is considered a utility focal range. So it's a great lens, very expensive. It's the lens I would carry around if I had very little equipment with me. So let's get on to my other lenses. I've got to delve into my bag here. By the way, these are Tamrac, T-A-M-R-A-C pouches, and they're ideal. But they're very hard to get a hold of at the moment. I don't know why. They're soft, and of course they'll always crush down to fit the lens, because I find hard lens pouches are a bit of a compromise because you usually got space at the top. This is my Zeiss Loxia 21mm f2.8. This is a cheap cap I always buy for most of my camera lenses because I know I'm going to lose the original at some point. This is the hood. I'll just quickly put it on. Now, I love this lens. It's not super wide at 21mm. I've never noticed vignetting on it. I've never had any distortion. It's supported by Adobe Camera Raw, so it reads the lens information. It is manual focus. So it goes from f2.8 up to f22. For landscape photography, you couldn't buy a better lens. Now, I know there are equivalents for Nikon and maybe Canon, maybe not exactly at 21mm, but if you see this lens from Zeiss and it's roughly in the area of 21mm, I recommend buying it because this is a fantastic lens. This is my favorite lens. Now, as I said, the Sony FE 2.8 24-70 cost me £1,800. And I didn't point out actually that GM at the end of the name stands for Gold Master, so it's their premium range. If I had to choose between the 24-70 and this, I would pick this. This costs £1,200. You could probably get away with just owning this lens. I love this lens with a vengeance. I will never get rid of it. Pointing out now, my filters, I don't often use many filters, but this is a circular polarizer and it's the only circular polarizer I own. All of my lenses have clear filters as well, and I get my filters from B&W or BW Schneider glass. They aren't cheap, and I recommend that you buy them in the XS Pro Digital range because that's the top of their range, and they are very expensive but well worth it. Now, my clear filters are just to protect my lenses. Saying, why am I spending so much money to protect my lenses? Well, any glass you put on top of another bit of glass will always have some effect on the quality of the image. So I go for the most expensive glass I can buy, and I would honestly tell you that I've never met anything or seen anything as good as B&W Schneider glass filters. So the circular polarizer is on this one at the moment, but normally I would have a clear filter on it. As I said, go for the XS Pro Digital range. I've been told by an optical engineer actually that if you put glass on top of glass that's not intended to be there in the first place, you will have an effect on the image. You might not notice it with your eye. I don't want vignetting, so I go for the best glass I can buy or filters I can buy. If you're going to spend £1,800 on a lens, why would you put £30 worth or $30 worth of filter over it? Doesn't make any sense. I will now say that I do not use graduated filters. I understand the logic of doing it in the camera, but I am a post-processing type person, so I use Lightroom or Photoshop, mainly Photoshop for that type of work. So that's my favorite lens done. Next lens. I'm sorry I've got to reach in my bag here. I'm in a small room today and it's a long story, but I'm doing my best under difficult circumstances. This is my Sony FE, F for full frame, E for E mount, 70 to 300mm focal range, and it's got an aperture from 4.5 to 5.6. And it's a G, which stands for gold, and OSS stands for optical steady shot. So the lens has the stability built in. If I were to use image stabilization on my Sony Alpha 7R2, this lens, if you turn on the optical stabilization, will turn off the image stabilization inside the camera. It is a pretty good utility lens for someone like me that likes to do a bit of bird photography. I often photograph surfers and people like that, and 200 meters offshore I've got some great shots with this. Now, being a mid-price zoom, well, I think it's mid-priced anyway, it's not fantastically sharp. It doesn't like being pointed into the light. Now, if I point this Zeiss Loxia towards the sun, I get a fantastic starburst or sunflare effect. If I point this towards the sun, I get a weird foggy effect, which is not unpleasant, but it's really a fault of the lens. So it does a pleasing effect, but it shouldn't do, if you see what I mean, because quality lenses pointed at the sun will give a starburst effect. I carry this, as I say, because I do a bit of bird photography, and if I want to photograph surfers and people like that offshore, I will use it. There's not a lot else I can say about this lens. Well, it's one little thing, is don't often assume you need a wide angle lens for doing landscape photography, because if you want to compress a landscape, a zoom is ideal, and there are plenty of photographers out there that specialize in using zooms for landscape photography, and I've used it to that effect, especially if you can't get yourself inside a scene, you know, you can't physically get the shot you want. Maybe you'll have to stand a mile away from what you really want and then zoom in with this. Right, my final lens, and I have to get it out, I'm afraid, it's all in my bag here. My final lens is my Voigtlander. It's an Austrian lens. Well, it actually was an Austrian lens. Cosina, C-O-S-I-N-A, a Japanese company, have now taken over Voigtlander. Now, this is a 15mm super wide f4.5 lens. I really like this lens. It does need quite a bit of light to function really well, but for architectural photography and just those wide open shots, it's fantastic. As I said, it needs a lot of light because the lowest it will go is f4.5, but for some reason it doesn't like low light. But if you've got the right amount of light, it creates a very sort of bright effect, almost like you've got hold of the clarity slider in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw and pushed it up quite high. And it doesn't mean it's caused artifacting, it just has a very pleasing effect. I really do like this lens. And at £600, I would say this is, well, a bargain. I think it's 650 actually, but pretty good price. Just to quickly recap on my lenses, the prices. The Sony FE 2.8 24-70 GM Goldmaster was £1,800. My Zeiss Luxia was £1,200. The Sony FE 4.5 to 5.6 70 to 300 G OSS is in fact £1,100. That's a good value zoom actually. So there's quite a bit of money there in lenses there, as my wife would probably attest to that. So that's my lenses and camera done. Other bits of my camera I use are an L bracket from Sirui, S-I-R-U-I. They're a Chinese company. Why do I have the L bracket? It's so I can do panoramic shots, capturing a lot of the sky in portrait mode. It's also Swiss Arca compatible, so it'll fit most tripods. So you screw it onto the bottom of the camera and it doesn't need a plate because you just slide that into the tripod head, or ball head I should say. So why would you need this if you didn't do panoramic photography? There might be a time where you need some stability using a tripod and you want to put your camera into portrait mode like this, or portrait stance. I've got a Sirui tripod. I'm not going to get the tripod out, it's no point, but it's a really good value tripod. It's the W1204. It's in fact got waterproof and dustproof seals, and as I live near the coast, that is a big selling point for me. I can vouch for it because I can put it in salt water, clean it, and it never has any problems. With my previous tripods, and I used to own a Gitzo, I used to completely ruin them because the seals couldn't take being put into salt water then dried off. So it has got this special sealing system and I do recommend it. Now the Sirui W1204 is nowhere near as good as a Gitzo in terms of the diameter of the tubing, etc. It's not as well engineered, but at £250, and I even got a ball head thrown in. I bought it from China direct. It was a fantastic tripod and I'm really happy with it. But if I had the money, I would buy a Gitzo Mountaineer, but I don't have the money. Incidentally, Gitzo used to make waterproof tripods, but they've stopped making them now. Obviously, they might have had some problems with them not working. So Sirui, S-I-R-U-I, are the only company making a waterproof tripod. When I mean waterproof tripod, I do mean the seals. I don't mean the whole tripod. And it does mean you have to keep it clean as well. Just don't assume you can throw it in water and it won't have any effect. You've got to clean it off. Anyway, camera equipment. Let's go to something else I've got. And that is my Peak Design Capture Pro. Now, the camera plate at the bottom, the plate from the tripod, clicks into that there. So if I could try to show you, on the bottom of my camera, I have the plate, and that's from Peak Design, and it is Swiss Arca compatible. I'm obviously doing it from a different angle here. I can just clip it in, and it's pretty safe, and I have to press a button to get it off, and it's the way I carry my camera. I didn't know that anyone had not made this before because I think it's such a simple idea. And Peak Design are a Kickstarter company and they aren't cheap, their equipment, and this is about 70 UK pounds, but I do rate it. Obviously top grade aluminium, this is the Pro version. There are cheaper versions, but it is quite expensive at £70. Also, whilst I'm here, I will point out that I also have the lens capture, which allows me, if I could just show you with one of these lenses here with the Voigtlander, take the lid off, it allows me to carry the lenses like so. It can be a bit fiddly to put on sometimes, but that's the nature of it, that's the E-mount. And you can put a lens underneath, and it swivels round as well. So you can just change your lenses on the fly. So I take a lens off, probably tuck it under my arm, take the other lens off here, put it on the camera and put the lens from underneath my arm back into that hole. So if you're, in an environment where you need to change lenses quickly, this is a great piece of kit. Again, around 60 to 70 pounds, but I really like it. I have other Peak Design stuff and I'll show you that in a minute. Well, in fact, I'll show you another Peak Design product. This is the shell. It's a camera cover. This is the medium one, roughly 30-40 pounds. And the camera goes in there and the lens will poke out there. It's even got a little cover for the lens. With my clear filters on and this, I feel very confident about going near the edge of the sea and when there's breaking surf, because I know my camera's totally protected. So I really do rate this. It's neoprene, it's stretchy. Obviously, lifting that up can make it fiddly. You can also use their straps for, there's little slits in the side there, and their strap system relies on these little red discs here, and I'll show you them in a minute. Right, this is a Spuds SPUDZ microfiber cloth. It's in the neoprene pouch with a clip, and if I want to use it, I just pull it out. I keep these permanently on my rucksacks and I only take them off to wash them occasionally. I think they're a fantastic idea. People moan saying, well, why are they $8 or $9 or £9? I think that's pretty cheap. I know you can get microfiber cloths for a couple of pounds, but this is such a good idea. I recommend it to anyone who does landscape because you'll never forget your cloths. It's all very well putting a microfiber cloth into a little polythene bag, but sometimes you forget them. So having them on the outside of your sack is a really good idea. What else? Lighting. This is a Petzl Now, N-A-O. I don't know if you can read that on the side there. This has got a lumens of 575, i.e. it's very bright. It's also got reactive lighting technology, which means it reacts to the light around it. How do I explain that? I'll sort of turn it on now. Now it's got a light dependent resistor there. So if it's not getting reflected light back, i.e. it's getting darker, it will get brighter. So if I point it towards something, a bright source, it actually dims it. So if you're looking at a map and you bend your head down, it actually will dim the light. And I really do love that. And that's what makes it last nearly all night. Now it's designed for endurance runners that run overnight. So this is a fantastic piece of kit. You can even program it on your computer with the USB port, unbelievable. The newer version is 750 lumens and actually you can use a Bluetooth device on your phone to set it up. So you can have different light variations. And as I say, it will last you all night. It's extremely bright, overkill for most landscape photographers. But as I do a bit of urban exploration and I go into caves, etc., it's a great light. And another unique selling point is that you can also lock it so it doesn't go off in your bag. And that for me is one of the best things about it. So the Petzl Now, which has been updated now, this is the 2014 version, but the newer one, it's quite expensive. This was about £120. I think the newer one's about 140. So it's not cheap, probably overkill for most people, but as I say, I do stuff other than just normal landscape photography. I have other lights as well. This is Petzl also, PETZL. It's an E+ light. It's the older version. It's got like a string at the back so you can actually put it on your head like so. It's got several different modes, like that's a normal sort of headlight one. That's a bit brighter. That's flashing white, flashing red, just red. So I have 3 of these for all 3 of my sacks. So I keep them in my sacks at all time. So I'm never without a light. Anything else I can mention while I'm here? Oh yes, Zeiss spray. If you live near the coast, which I do not clean salt water off your lens with a microfiber cloth, because what will happen is the salt will dry onto the cloth and then when you come to clean your lens again, you will scratch it. So I use a Zeiss spray or whatever, it could be any product really, as long as it's meant for lenses. I really soak my lenses with this before I clean them if I'm in a salty environment. I also use a lens pen. If you don't know what a lens pen is, it's got a brush on one end, like so, and it's got a carbon tip on the other end. This is great for getting greasy fingerprints off lenses, and I don't use it over the whole lens, just small parts to get the grease off. It's claimed by the manufacturer that when you put the lid back on here, it self-cleans it, but after a certain point in time, I believe that you need to replace it. So what I do is I throw them in a bin and then go and buy a new one. But I do carry it and I do swear by it. It's great for cleaning the viewfinder as well and the screen on the back of your camera. A Joby Focus, which is here. I really like this. It's really tough. It can take my 300mm lens and probably heavier. I always find somewhere to wrap it around to get the shot I want, but I often do ground shots with it and I find it ideal for that type of thing, so it saves me spreading my tripod out. I also have a Mefoto backpacker travel tripod, but for landscape photography I do not recommend it because it's not heavy enough to dig into soft grass and stuff like that, so I don't rate it for that type of thing. For urban stuff or where you've got hard surfaces, fine. Yep, so that's the Joby. I have other Jobys, I've got lots of them actually over the years, but I went for the Focus because I'm frightened of my camera falling over. This might be a bit esoteric, but I keep a little sit mat, foam sit mat with me. I don't often sit on it, but what I do is I put my camera equipment on it. I have other stuff as well. I've actually got a Matador outdoor blanket, which I might be able to show you in a minute. But I find this really useful. I just quickly pull it out of my pack and just put it on the deck and put my camera stuff on it. It's absolutely fantastic for that type of thing. If I need to sit down, I can sit on it. I also keep a power pack. This is a small one, probably enough for my mobile phone. I have a much larger one, which I can power my camera from or charge my batteries. This is so cheap. I think it was about £12. Supermarkets sell them now, so you've got no excuses. Obviously, I've got leads for all my equipment, but I would never go out without this in my pack if I was going to somewhere remote, because it might be just my mobile phone that's going to work, and if my mobile phone runs out of juice, I've got this. Night Eyes, which is N-I-T-E space I-Z-E. These are their gear ties. I find them really useful because they're semi-rigid. It's like wire covered in this plastic. Why I like them? They're bright. That's one of the best things I like about Night Eyes stuff. They think about things like that. This is a Peak Design leash. It's one of their sort of basic models for a neck strap. And how it works is those red discs there, I can't do it in front of you because I'm holding the camera weight up. They clip in on a spring-loaded system. So that is how the strap fits on. And obviously I've got these other joining points or clip, what do you call them, discs everywhere so I can carry my camera. Peak Design, Kickstarter company, very good in my opinion, but not exactly cheap. I carry, this is Life Venture, it's a travelling towel. It's a bit like a microfiber cloth, but it can absorb 8 times its own weight in water. So I use it for cleaning off tripods or cleaning my camera, not the lenses obviously, myself, etc, etc. So I find these really useful. Zip ties, again, I carry them. I've never used my zip tie, but I do carry them. This is going to be a weird one. This is a Baofeng, B-A-O-F-E-N-G, UV5R. Chinese, maybe illegal in the UK and possibly in the US. Used by preppers in the US, survivalists. It's a very popular radio, the people who are in the know. It's £22, it's extremely cheap. Now the problem with it is it can transmit all of, not all actually, but most of the UHF and VHF amateur radio frequencies. It can transmit on all the marine frequencies worldwide. It can also transmit on the PMR, which is Public Mobile Radio Network, which is a bit like CB for the UHF and VHF range. The problem I have with it, well, yes, I could transmit even on the Public Mobile Radio Network legally, but with this, it's got 4 watts of power and the maximum amount of power transmit with in the UK is 1 watt. It can listen to FM broadcast radio and I do use it for that. But what I will say is the only reason I carry this is for safety. Now, in the marine band, there's a channel 16. And if I'm on the coast and even probably far from the coast, if I transmit on channel 16, if I've broken my leg and put out a mayday, I don't think anyone will mind that I don't have a license to use this. Great radio, £22, virtually waterproof. If I lost it, I'll just go and buy another one. I've got it off Amazon. They might end up being made illegal in the UK, so if you want one, go and get one now. what else have I got? I also have little things on my rucksacks. This is a reel. I've got my Allen key on it for my tripod plate. So little things like that I find really useful. A couple of quid off Amazon. I've also got a multi-tool I keep clipped on there. That's a Leatherman PS. I have to say you could probably go to a hardware store or a DIY store and get one a lot cheaper. This is just light, and that's what I like about it. To be honest, I should have gone for a bigger one. I don't find this really useful, but the pair of pliers do come in useful occasionally. I always carry a hat. And this is a Rohan, R-O-H-A-N, escaper hat. What I like about it, it's got a foldable peak so you can fold it up quite quickly. It's also got a bungee cord tie on the back so you can really tighten it on your head. And if it's like a Force 9, which I've been out with this, it does work, it stays on your head. It's also water resistant. Right, gloves. These are a newish purchase and I haven't actually used them yet. This is a Valorette Markov Pro glove. That's why I like it. It's been designed by photographers for photographers. They've got some new ones out now. They used to be sort of Europe only as far as online, where you had to pay a lot for the postage. They've now got a US store, so they are spreading across the Atlantic. I think they're based in Norway, so they know about the cold. This is kind of what they call their basic model. They have got warmer versions. Now, I'm going to talk Celsius now. If you go below freezing 0 in the UK, this will probably be fine up to about -5. Anything below that, I would be a little bit worried. But with these on, even when it's very cold, I use these. Hot hands, hand warmers. I thought you just carried them in your hand like that. No, they're designed to be put inside the glove. So I can vouch these really work. They're meant to last for 10 hours, and actually they do. I forgot to mention, I always carry a blower. Mirrorless camera. When you take the lens off, the sensor's really exposed. You have to give it a blast. I always give it a blast with this. Also blast my lenses before I clean them to make sure I'm not going to scratch them. So a blower is really important. If it's going to rain, obviously I'll carry waterproof trousers and things like that. So I've got quite a bit of stuff. I do have other knives I use because I often have to cut through undergrowth, so I've got a machete, etc. I've got a GPS, a very old one. It's a Garmin Vista HCx, probably 10 years old, but I use it for recording my track of where I've been, so I can upload it to Lightroom to plot my pictures on the map. So I find it useful for that. But you can also use plenty of software on your mobile phone. Two bits of software I do have on my mobile phone are a sort of route plotting software or track making software called ViewRanger, and I suggest you look into it because I find it really useful for recording tracks and creating routes, etc. I'll have a link down below. And the other one is Sun Surveyor. It's the best inference app I've ever come across. The other ones don't really cut the mustard as far as I'm concerned. So Sun Surveyor, which I believe is available on Google, Android and on iOS for Apple, is the best bit of sun and moon calculation software I've got. It does the Milky Way as well. It's absolutely fantastic. I do recommend getting it. Carry blister plasters. I don't often get blisters, but you never know. This is a reflective strap, Velcro one. If I was to walk on the road, I would probably put this on my ankle on my rucksack. My three sacks are, I'll go for them now. It's my big one's a Lowepro Whistler 350 BPAW. I've got it here, but it's far too big to fit in the frame. I absolutely love this sack. The AW stands for all weather. That means it's got a built-in rain cover. This is also partially water resistant. I can vouch for that. You can take a really good shower without soaking into the camera equipment. As far as outdoor sacks go, there's not much better than that. I think Lowepro have come up with a winner there, but it will cost you a lot of money. Around £300, I think it is, or 250 or something. It's a lot of money. I have got this Lowepro Flipside Trek, which I like, which is my go-to sack mainly. This has also got a built-in rain cover, so it's essential for me. And I've also got a Lowepro Slingshot Edge 150 AW built-in rain cover. So rain covers are really important because you're out in the outdoors, obviously, with landscape photography. Most landscape photographers go out by themselves, and I prefer to go out by myself. That's the beauty of when you're working with lots of people all week, and you can suddenly get out by yourself on a Saturday or Sunday, but you are by yourself, and I'm often in hostile environments, so I like to feel safe, so the radio and torches and whistles, etc. are really important. Power packs, leads. So I'm very, very fussy about what I've got in my pack, so I can just pick up my pack and go. I hope you got something from this, guys. It's been a bit disjointed because I'm in a small space today. I am a person that's got gas gear acquirement syndrome, but I try and keep it under control. But I think what I own is really important for me, so I can justify everything I own. That's it, guys. Thanks very much.